a country that has the largest Muslim population in the world. 87% are there. And except for Bali. In Bali, 84% are Hindu. I recall the way I was a little hesitant to engage in Richard from Oklahoma. And I thought I better get over that in Indonesia because I'm going alone and I'm going to have to talk to strangers. And I'm going to have to rely on them for help. So I started off small. I was sitting in the hotel lobby in my hotel, and obviously, I guess that was redundant. I was sitting in the lobby, and I was doing some reading, and I had my backpack in the chair beside me, and then this little young boy came and sat on the edge of the chair in which my backpack was already sitting. I saw him sit down, so I immediately took the backpack away, and I said, "I'm sorry, you can sit down." And okay, so he scooted over and he made himself comfortable, and then he began to talk to me. He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "America." He said, "Oh, I like Russia." I said, "Russia? What do you like about Russia?" "The singers." Okay. He asked, "Are you Christian or Muslim?" I said, "Christian." He said, "Oh, I'm Muslim because I want to go to heaven." Uh-oh. But then I remembered Jesus really didn't ask Peter to argue in theological questions. So I let it go. Besides, he was just a little kid, right? But it was a good experience. It was good practice, right? "What's your name?" we both asked. He could pronounce my name a lot better than I can pronounce his. You know, in Indonesia, they speak very quickly and they can roll their R's. I can never roll their R's. And so I asked him, "What's your name? Can you spell it?" And it was simple, A-R-D-A. I still couldn't say it right. He was in Yogyakarta with his family on holiday. And while we were talking, his family came and said, "It's time for breakfast," or so it looked like that's what they said. And so he ran along, but he didn't stay very long. He came back quickly and engaged in conversation again. And we began to talk about where we were from. I showed him pictures of Colorado, the mountains and the rivers and the places that we love here. I showed him pictures of my pets. He was not impressed with the pets. I showed him a picture of my meal I had at In-N-Out while I was in Southern California. And he said, "Oh, we don't eat that stuff. It'll make you ill." His family came back after a little while and told him they were off for their day's adventure. But before he left, he said, "You know, my dad has 2 friends that are American. I don't have any." I told him, "I'll be your friend from America." He smiled. And I said, "Goodbye." And then he looked at me confidently and said, "Till we meet again." And then I met PJ. I was having a lot of practice trying to give others of my time, trying to engage with strangers and see what I might hear and learn from them. I was having a lot of practice loving people because I'm a Christian. PJ was my tour guide as I toured Mount Merapi. The big toothy grin, the cool sunglasses, he had dreadlocks back behind that. He was the most soulful man I've ever met, and he spoke with such a quiet peacefulness in his voice. Mount Merapi is the volcano, and it had erupted in 2020, killing 553 people and destroying many people's homes. It completely destroyed the village that PJ grew up in. He still lives nearby, and when I asked him why he stays so close to the volcano, he says, "The volcano gives many blessings too." In fact, he said, sometimes the volcano makes even Interesting theology. I wasn't going to argue with him. He continued by saying, it's no different than anywhere else you might live. If I were living in the city, they have so many cars, you could get hit by a car. He says, that's why I feel sorry for the people who work too much. They don't understand the value of the time they're given. Amen to that. I met so many other people, great people who had interesting stories. I met Rama, my Hindu tour guide, one day, and I was telling him, I know nothing about Hinduism. Can you recommend a book or two that I might learn? And he says, oh yeah, how about the Vedas or the Upanishads? Those are the holy scriptures of Hinduism. And he said, oh, those books will change your life. I wondered, but I wasn't going to argue. I was just glad they had changed his. I met Kaz, my dive master, scuba diving. Kaz was Muslim, and I was telling him I was so enjoying listening 5 times a day to the Muslim call to prayer in Indonesia. It was a good reminder for me even, and all Muslims, to just stop and be in prayer. And Kaz says, yeah, I find that I need to pray a lot more often than 5 times a day. I met people who just simply wanted to practice their English with me. And so we had all sorts of conversations. I met people who wanted to have selfies taken with me, and I did as much as I could to be there. And for every single person that I met, I learned so much from. I was so blessed by these strangers. These strangers who were simply loving the God they love, loving the God they know, and in doing so, being kind to me and generous with me. And in those interactions, I felt loved. Sometimes it's a big ask. And yet Jesus asks, do you love me? Well, then we know what to do. Amen.